All right. Hello, everyone. This is My Two Cents, and welcome to the Kool Kapitalist Kids podcast, which I host from time to time. I'm joined by 5 other Libertarian Ancaps here, and we are going to discuss some crazy stuff that's going on in the world right now.
Yeah.
So,
And you know I am SO, and just for the record, Filthy Heretic, you saw that channel that's been spamming some of your videos, kill all carnivists.
I'm wondering what the hell's up with him.
Yeah,
I think he's a troll.
Yeah, that's my channel. I'm fucking with you.
I didn't think it was you, but I knew it was someone who was I knew it was someone who was actually friendly. It was just like trying to be funny.
That's perfect.
I was just gonna ask, what the hell's a carnivist?
They believe that carnivorism.
It's a term created by vegans to basically sort of imply that eating meat is an ideology. It's sort of like their equivalent of calling someone a statist.
Yeah. Hey, Kitsune.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I gotta start sending out these hangout links individually.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always, you know how on your phone sometimes it like only gives you like 2 notifications from a given thing in Discord and then it just stops. Well, I kind of forgot about that and I was keeping an eye out for this and then I was like, oh shit, you know, they're being quiet. So I checked and oh, there you are.
Thank you, Heretic, Hoplu, SO, for inviting me.
You're welcome.
Thank you for being on.
Thanks.
all right. Well, shall we jump into this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
George Bush Sr. died.
Which everyone has been talking about. Of course,
Perfect.
The typical media narrative that comes along with the death of a U.S. president is, particularly among the left, is that they talk about how they've been using this as an opportunity to talk about how horrible Donald Trump is and how President George H.W. Bush is, a perfect example of how the Republican Party used to be civil and wonderful and just great.
Bush died.
What? When he was in office, they kept bitching about him.
That's disrespectful.
We need to be
Bush
playing
was
Crab
disrespectful.
Rave this entire segment.
Yeah, George Bush was. God damn it! No, George Bush was disrespectful, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if your viewers are familiar with. We covered that CIA document that got leaked a few months ago. George Bush has done some stuff that would make even like the worst tyrants of the world, blush.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm not defending the man. I'm merely pointing out the ridiculousness of the narrative because they did the same thing with John McCain. People on the left talked about how awful he was when he was alive, and then when he died, he was they basically made him a scapegoat they used him to attack Trump, basically saying, Trump was horrible, McCain's a great person. Trump was horrible, George H.W. Bush was a great person. Well, the reality is John McCain was a garbage human being. George H.W. Bush was a garbage human being. But that doesn't really matter because it doesn't help their narrative.
The only good thing that can be said about George Bush Sr. is that he's only the second worst Bush in existence.
The second worst.
All politicians.
If I may add,
this is why we can't have 7 people on one fucking stream. But we know some of the terrible things that George H.W. Bush has done, but a lot of this stuff, I assume that George W. has done stuff of similar caliber, considering he has a very similar public record. So
no reason to assume he wouldn't.
Yeah. Oh, you think this is bad for as far as interruptions go? You should see how much people talk over each other on the streams I'm on every Sunday. It's like oh my god, and there's only usually like 5 or 6 people there at a time, and they just hard to get a word in edgeways.
Anyways.
Well,
All
yeah,
right.
I mean,
Well,
you're gonna see-
guess we don't need to beat the George Bush point to the ground.
I think we do actually.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay. If you got more to add, go ahead.
we didn't
With
really
politics.
touch on the media's hypocrisy because I mean, firstly, they weren't too nice to HW, but I mean, some of the outlets weren't. I mean, that's something that mainstream outlets like Fox are claiming. But I mean, if you look back at like most of the CNN coverage, you know, they cherry pick specific examples, but it was more or less like 50-50.
What's interesting is that it's like they're going to try to claim that he was a wonderful person, but nope, I'm pretty sure most people
Look
are
at
too
his
young to
dog.
remember.
His dog misses him.
Remember when he was in office and everyone like hated him?
I remember. I know that in my lifetime, George W. Bush is going to die, and the media is going to give him these glowing obituaries about what a wonderful person he is. The difference is, I'm old enough to remember, and consciously remember, just how horribly he was excoriated by the media to the point
Yeah.
where Bush bashing became a media genre.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
It was
I remember
bad. It was
Bushism.
really,
Yeah.
really bad.
Remember
Being-
the term Bushisms? Yeah, that's where that came from. There's literally a term for it.
Wow.
And being 18, I've never really looked into Bush because, you know, I'm fucking millennial trash. But yeah. Yeah. And I never really looked into Bush. I never was familiar with Bush, and I do know he was a bad person because he literally was the creator of the Patriot Acts,
Yeah.
which in itself is horrible.
Didn't he bomb Iraq?
Mm-hmm. Well, the whole war in Iraq was the White House essentially ordered the FBI to find they were ordered to prove that 9/11 was in some way Iraq's fault in order to justify invading Iraq, when the real reason for it was to stabilize the petrodollar.
Sure. Establish your conclusion first, then look for evidence. That's the
Which
way
is-
to do it.
Which is always hilarious because the explanation I'm always given for the Iraq War was because Saddam Hussein violated an agreement he made with the U.S. after the conclusion of Operation Desert Storm. Now, why do we have Operation Desert Storm? I am not joking. I mentioned this in my obituary for George H.W. Bush, but the reason that we had Operation Desert Storm was because we could.
We could kill people, but so we did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, one last thing I have to add on this is something I mentioned back when McCain died, and that's the fact that when people like Ron Paul are eventually going to pass away, no one's going to basically come to his defense and say, oh, he was such a great man. No! The entire media is just going to either ignore him or take it as an opportunity to bash on him some more.
Like when a white guy
You know that this is going to happen. Everyone watching this knows that it's going to happen. Everyone who likes Ron Paul knows it's going to happen. Everyone who doesn't like Ron Paul knows it's going to happen.
Yeah, he's gonna get the Spooner treatment.
Exactly.
He's going to get the Snowden.
I mean, the media's the way the media operates basically is if every Republican president since Eisenhower has been called Adolf Hitler, when they're in office, they're endlessly bashed. But then as soon as they're out of office, if there's a new Republican in office, suddenly the previous Republican president becomes a hero. And they say, I mean, look, there was a time when the Republican Party was actually a halfway decent institution. But now under this guy, he's just horrible.
Wow.
Yeah.
It seems that programming needs an extra go-to line.
Something
The reality is they're all horrible. It's just what
Yeah.
that doesn't fit the media's narrative. So
Something
they're gonna
that I'm thinking about is the state's not going to be around when Donald Trump dies. Because I mean, the global markets, you know, they're so unstable right now; it could collapse tomorrow. So,
good.
Yeah, there is one.
For all we know, the state won't even be around to the next presidential election. But,
I give it a month.
okay, I'm just trying to think right now. You know, I was thinking about this, and I realized, you know, if the state had been around to see Donald Trump die, he probably would have been given a similar treatment.
Yeah.
Weird.
You know he would. This is how every cycle goes.
Mm-hmm.
And I do have one last thing about George H.W. Bush that I wanted to ask you guys about, since one of you might have more insight into this than I do. Now, I was watching some news about George H.W. Bush and what a great hero he was, and how in World War II he used to do missions for the Navy, flying planes around, and he apparently did 60 missions. Now, apparently, this is supposed to be an obscenely huge number because of the high casualty rates for airplane pilots, probably over exaggerated because of the excruciatingly huge casualty rates of Flying Fortress crew members. But anyways, apparently, while the average mission rate was around 18, somehow he managed to do like 60, 62, 64.
Huh.
And I'm just wondering, like, obviously he never touched and probably never even glanced at a Flying Fortress in his life, but
they're definitely doing something. They're definitely making up shit.
Well, I don't think they made it up. I don't think they're making it up, because that kind of thing can be fact-checked and then you prove that the news media is wrong. I think what it is you have an airline pilot who is the son of a senator, is basically given incredibly easy escort missions where the chances of encountering an enemy are slim to none.
Yeah.
Probably.
You want to know something else, which is actually really interesting? So I was digging around through some campaign finance reports, and I found basically the paper trail, which proves that Donald Trump is controlled opposition, which was something we were going to talk about later.
Well, that's unexpected.
He funded Nancy Pelosi's campaign. I'm not even joking about that.
Yeah, I think I've heard that before, actually.
Wow.
All right. Well, that'll be an interesting discussion. I guess I'm going to keep us moving here before we run out of time. Yeah. All right, next thing to talk about is the Yellow Vest riots that are currently taking place in Paris.
And in Germany.
Paris? You mean all of France?
Yes.
All of France, Germany, probably parts of Netherlands.
Wow.
Yep, I'm definitely, from now on, I'm handing these out individually, because this can't happen again.
Yeah.
But I've been really busy this week. Can someone catch me up to speed?
Basically, the macaroni government decided in its quest to pander to watermelon elites that it was gonna basically impose a 30 cents per liter tax on gasoline. Which
means that per day, if you wanted to, you know, go to and from work, you would be spending like the equivalent of $40 to $60 on gas. So essentially, in an entire week, just to use your car to go to and from work, you would basically be spending your entire paycheck just on gas.
Yep.
I read something about it being $80 a week to pay gas. That's if you have a 10-gallon car.
Well,
because
either way, people who work 9-to-5 jobs and make like 40 to 60,000 a year, these people are not going to be able to afford a living, and that's the majority of the country. So,
yeah.
It's interesting because something that was noted back in 2011 during the Arab Spring, when you look all across the Middle East and North Africa, you know, there was this general uprising amongst the youth of Arab cultures against the well-known fact that their governments are corrupt. There were a lot of different reasons for it. There wasn't necessarily a unified cause amongst the various youthful Arabs about why what they were angry at or what they wanted to replace their current government with. But there were 4 countries in particular that actually suffered failed states during that time. And the one common factor that the 4 states that actually failed had in common was the fact that they were in the midst of a hyperinflation, and it got to the point where the average citizen had to spend at least 40% of their income just to be able to put food on the table. And basically what a lot of economists who evaluated it said was that kind of shows the trend that there is this threshold that once the average citizen has to spend this much money just to eat, revolution's pretty much inevitable.
Yeah.
Or they go to the counter market, which could explain why Europe has such a large presence of cryptocurrency exchanges. I mean, it's almost as large as China.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's increasing, ain't it?
Yeah, it's recently the daily transactions in Bitcoin overtook MasterCard.
Oh wow.
Holy. Oh.
Yeah.
And there goes the status saying that Bitcoin would never be something.
Yeah.
Well, about that, that's actually really funny. Recently, somebody created a blog called the Bitcoin Obituaries because it was somebody who noticed what we noticed, which was that every time something even remotely like remote correction happens with cryptocurrency, the media claims that it's dead, the entire media. So somebody created this blog compiling every time the media has done that since 2014. They've done that 323 times since 2014. They claimed cryptocurrency is dead.
I remember it like not even a month ago hitting 300.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even remember. You know, I don't even think that the media has claimed that Donald Trump is racist that many times since he's taken office.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, back to France.
Yeah.
This is like the culmination of a whole bunch of shit that the macaroni government's been doing to basically favor leftist environmentalist watermelon elites over basically the entire population of the French middle and working class, and people are fucking sick of it. It's the end result of all this fucking leftist watermelon policy.
Late stage statism.
Yep.
Yeah. And what's funny is what I find funny is especially Macron's response that he's not going to be intimidated by this, proving he's authoritarian.
I'm not going to be intimidated by literally half the country.
Also, my friend in France said that people are actually starting to break into police stations and seize weapons.
Good.
Oh, Macron is gonna get King Louis.
Yeah.
Oh my! Someone break out the guillotines.
Zachary Cole asked, SOS, what would you say about the likelihood of communications going down, thus resulting in the use of other things besides digital currency as a means of exchange?
Well, I mean, currency wallets can be held on backups, so.
Yeah.
And there's always going to be metals.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if it does go down, then people are going to fight like hell or people are going to move heaven and earth to make sure it comes back online as quickly as possible.
Yeah, the internet is a really fucking important resource.
It is.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to
more important than like gasoline.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I've been saying that we need to restructure the internet, because how it's set up is not going to be sustainable after the state's gone.
Yeah.
I think eventually everyone's computer is just going to have sort of their own built-in internet through like a mesh network or something similar to that.
Yeah.
Can't wait for that to happen. Just for
it'll happen pretty shortly after the state's gone.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
But anyways, people in yellow vests are actually starting to pop up all over Western Europe.
It's really oh man. They're really angry. I'm surprised that hasn't happened. It's not happening now with like, I don't know, rednecks.
Oh, Article 13 is about to pass in the European Union with all these people wearing yellow vests popping up. What do you think is going to happen next when Article 13 passes?
Lots and lots of fire.
Yeah.
They're going to censor everything, talking about the yellow vests and anything, even remotely looking at the yellow vests in a positive light, or even just an objectively neutral light. And what's going to happen is, well, fire. Lots and lots of fire. Europe is going to be on fire again.
Europe is going to turn into California.
Europe already is California.
Fire.
They like to complain about like,
our
country. Yeah, there's a lot of problems, but then this stuff happens. We're just like, yeah.
This is
the story of libertarianism is we told you so.
I like that.
Well, that's not the full story. The full story is we told you so, but you never listen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The story of the state is this time it'll work.
This time.
Oh my god. Literally the Ron Paul memes of why didn't you stop this?
I mean, the Austrian economists have been saying since 2008 that there's going to be a market crash. And the reason why is pretty obvious, because we never actually came out of the 2008 recession. We just created more bubbles in every industry, which was declining.
And watch them blame the Austrians and libertarians for the upcoming.
That's the asinine part. That's the asinine part is that libertarianism is probably going to get blamed for the market crash.
It always is.
And I have, one of our upcoming topics. I have a bit to say on that. So.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, it's worth noting it happens over and over and over. During the Roaring '20s, which were roaring by all standards, it was Ludwig von Mises, Friedrich Hayek, who were saying, the Great Depression's going to happen. Everybody laughed. Well, whoop-de-doo, what happened? Same thing pre-2008. It was the Austrians that were saying a market crash is going to happen. Everyone laughed.
Yeah. You can find some interviews from 2005 I've seen on Fox Business. They had an Austrian economist on who was saying that there's going to be a recession. They literally did laugh at him.
We're going to
Proto-Austrians predicted the First World War.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Clever.
It's not you actually look at the political system of Europe during that time. It's really not that hard to see unless you purposefully ignore the facts of life.
No, I know.
They were all related on World War One. Like all the royals, the Kaiser.
Yeah. I mean, it is royalty.
It was literally
blue blood without a lot of inbreeding.
Yeah, Germany was the Germans Kaiser, which related to the British monarchs and queens.
Habsburgs.
It was literally nothing but a blood feud.
Yeah. Well, France is the start of many things to come. Anyone who doesn't think this is going to eat their fucking words.
Oh yeah, especially considering, worldwide trends right now. We really could talk about the stock market because it's sort of, a lot of things that have happened this week tie into that.
Yeah, let's mesh everything together. Let's just, for the rest of the stream, let's mesh everything together.
Right. So the yellow vest riots are kind of...
I do have one last point to make about the yellow vests, though, if you don't mind.
Okay, go ahead.
So recently, Macron or Macaroni has tried to appease the yellow vests by saying, "Okay, we're going to postpone the fuel tax for 6 months."
And that's just made them even angrier.
That just made them even angrier. Now, this is actually kind of what I predicted with my video in regards to tax protests, that the state's going to try to give them breadcrumbs and concessions to try to buy them off. Now, whether or not they do get bought off, I can't possibly ever predict, but it does look like they're in this for keeps, that they don't want a fuel tax at all, which to their credit, definitely a good thing. Now, the question is whether or not they can finally take their principles to a logical conclusion and realize that taxation is theft.
Yeah.
They're not.
What
they're
I
not
see
going
happening
to
in the
on their
future,
own.
though, is
Hoplu, hold on. They're not going to on their own, but I think that whether or not they actually choose to or not, I think that the coming market crash, everyone's going to become a counter economist by necessity, because the crypto market will be the only active means of trade after the states, after the fiat collapse.
But one thing I will say though is that if unless everything goes down pretty soon, I see that what I see happening is that it's gonna transform from Macaroni using his failure of a police force to suppress the problem to fucking NATO suppressing the problem, and when that fails,
I don't doubt that it's gonna escalate quite a bit.
And when that fails, which it inevitably will with guerrilla warfare.
I think with the fact that the market is just about to collapse, I mean, you do have to take that into consideration. I literally do think that people are just going to be trading around the state. And we actually, we've explained previously that cryptocurrencies are a preferred medium of exchange, that once the demand goes up so high, they'll eventually just transition to becoming a money. But now we have demonstrable proof of that, because after today's stock market decline, Bitcoin transactions went up 126%.
We could be looking at the next of several.
People look at cryptocurrency in the same way that they look at gold.
Yeah. I think we're looking at the beginning of like the 50th or whatever French Revolution.
Yes, only
France is going to go much further than France.
I know.
Only it's going to be the world revolution.
I'm just making a joke that there's been a lot of French revolutions.
Certainly have. Rousseau is rolling in his grave.
But yeah, you have what's going on in France, you have what's going on in Germany, you have Canada, which is basically about to collapse because their oil market just went under like a couple days ago. Then you
America's
have it's basically the worldwide stock markets, and this is something that was predicted by the Austrian economists. But this is going to be the worst one, probably even worse than the Great Depression, because it affects every country. And we were already in a depression before that. We were already in a really bad sub-mortgage crisis before that. And so what was our solution to these declining markets? We'll just create massive bubbles in all of them. The housing market, the auto industry. I mean, it's going to be bad. It's going to make the Great Depression look comparable in comparison.
I hope you all like ketchup sandwiches.
I've been seeing all these articles about how there's a giant housing bubble that's ready to burst. A housing bubble. In the meantime, like, housing prices, at least in my area, haven't recovered at all since 2008.
Oh, wow.
So this is a housing bubble after the fallout from a housing bubble. What the hell's going to happen?
This is going to be an apocalyptic scale.
Actually, concentric bubbles is bad.
Like, not even fear-mongering. It actually will be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. My least favorite kind of apocalypse.
Yeah, what's funny is everyone always claims, had the government not intervened the way it did in 2008, it would have been a worldwide apocalyptic event. Well, newsflash, you idiots. Now it's going to be an even worse worldwide apocalyptic event. So
people are going to be...
The government intervened in 2008, and that's what caused the fucking recession to begin with. So the government caused that, and the government's response to that caused this.
All they did is kick the can down the road.
The last 10 years has basically just been in a stock market illusion or a bubble.
So
they kicked the can down the road. They just ensured the collapse happens no matter what. All they've done is ensure it's going to be even worse now.
But yeah, it's the everything bubble. The dollar vigilante used that term, and I think that's probably the best way to describe it, because it's pretty much every major industry is in a bubble.
Several of them are in concentric bubbles.
Even the currency's in a bubble, and that's always been in a bubble.
Well,
the euro is
since we went on fractional reserve banking, so
get my popping needles.
But there's like gonna be this isn't gonna be like a fucking just a recession. This isn't gonna be the Depression. This is gonna be the Roman Empire collapses.
Oh no!
Collapses.
This is gonna be like fiat currencies defaulting. States are going to reform, or at least they're going to attempt to, if it wasn't for the crypto market.
I think it's going to be like a zombie apocalypse without the zombies.
The world's not going to be the same. Let's just put it like that.
The last days of Rome. Worldwide
All right.
edition.
So just to make sure, again, just make sure we keep moving. So that being said, let's talk about what's happened in the stock market recently.
All right.
Yeah.
It died.
Yay.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you look at it today, it's like the S&P 500 lost like 6%, which is just unheard of. I think it was like 6%, but yeah.
It's also tied in with the fact there's so many like businesses that are like defaulting, like I think Lowe's.
Yeah, fucking Citibank declared bankruptcy like a couple weeks ago.
Huh. That's almost funny. Banks declaring bankruptcy.
Yeah. Notice
how do you think fractional reserve banking works?
Yeah, that's even funnier.
Get more money. Just print it.
That'll make everyone rich.
Yeah. It's funny. Harry Alexander just commented in the chat, "Orange man bad, orange man bad, orange man bad, orange man good." And the irony being, because the rest of the country is so heavily focused on the Mueller investigation, Trump good, Trump bad, that whole thing. They like, what news outlet is talking about Citibank defaulting? None of them.
Yeah, that's a distraction. That is a classic distraction. I recognized that pretty much the moment that I saw it. I mean, they're pretty easy. They're pretty easy to point out because if there is a red herring distraction narrative, for one, it'll usually have no significance on your world or politics in general. Like the moment that it gets done with, people will just stop talking about it and nothing will have changed. It doesn't affect anything. Yeah. So those issues, and the Mueller investigation is a classic example of one of those. It's a red herring. It is a distraction.
And the only ones I see
to point out is that while people endlessly babble on about immigration and transgenders, this shit's going on. The warfare state, the stock market, the central banking, financial scheme, all of it. And it's going completely unnoticed due to mainstream topics.
Tons of things have happened in recent weeks, which, would make it understandable why they focus on the Mueller investigation and don't talk about actual news. We have the U.S. in Syria launching white phosphorate bombs on SDF occupied territory, which are our allies. Then you have, Russia just completely refusing the U.S. dollar. They're not even trading it anymore.
Yeah.
About time.
But nope. We've got to talk about if a penis can transform into a vagina. That is all we are going to talk about today.
That's all we need to talk about.
Grape.
I'm sure science will come up
And
with
yeah,
something.
most importantly, you have the stock market. And, I've noticed that since all this has started going down, like, since the stock markets really started, like, not looking good, like, investors are starting to invest in sort of the same stocks so that the stocks start to synchronize, which suggests instability in the market. And we've had all these bad days. I've noticed that's when these long distractions have started to begin, like the Mueller, the really meaningless ones recently.
Look, don't worry about the literal death of everything, every single state you ever knew. Just look at this.
I come out and, like I've mentioned my living situation. I basically have my own politics, and then I go out and get some water or something, and everyone's watching Fox News. I mean, it's literally like two different realities. I'm sitting in here watching what's going on with the markets, and I literally have a suitcase packed on the floor right now for the moment that it happens.
Oh, wow.
I'm not even kidding. And they're out there watching the Mueller investigation.
Everyone's treating it like nothing's wrong, and it's scary.
Like nothing's wrong because they plan to blame us.
They're blinded.
In my household, like every single TV was on the not Mueller, on the Kavanaugh case.
But something tells me they won't believe them anymore. They may blame us, but they won't believe them anymore.
That might be wishful thinking on our parts.
Like I said, that's the glory of agorism and counter economics. Is you could be a Marxist or a fascist. It doesn't really matter. You're gonna end up siding with us out of your own economic interests.
But don't. But what's going to be absolutely hilarious is they're going to do the same thing they did in 2008 and just proclaim, "Wait a minute, this whole thing came out of nowhere. Who could have foreseen this?" And of course, they're going to trump up their, no pun intended, their list of scapegoats who are going to be these big companies. They're going to say, like, "Oh, we need to do these grand investigations to make sure that X company wasn't breaking the law and doing something." And of course, nothing's going to come of that. They're going to at least try to get bailouts. Whether or not they actually will or not, I don't believe so.
You want to predict on the record right now who some of their scapegoats are going to be?
Hmm.
I can name one. Trump.
Yeah.
Yes.
I feel like that one's so obvious. I didn't say it.
Actually, the very first one they go to is Trump did it.
Well, I think their narrative will probably be something along the lines of, "This is a direct result of the Trump tax, quote unquote, cuts."
And that's exactly why I said that.
They're going to find some regulation that was repealed, and they're going to blame it on that.
They keep talking about the Trump tax cuts, and Trump keeps talking about his deregulation. But if you look at the Federal Register, he's not actually deregulating the economy. And the tax cut was very minuscule, sort of like any other Republican in history, if they even do. They spend more, which just implies future taxation.
Minuscule does not even begin to describe this. It's pathetic.
This is but I'm trying to explain something. Okay, so I think this is what leads me to believe that Trump, aside from the actual documented paper trail I have now, that this is something that proves Trump has controlled opposition. I think that he knew under his presidency that the market was going to collapse. I mean, we've demonstrated on past streams that they understand Austrian concepts and utilize them, like the central bank doesn't utilize Austrian concepts, but I forgot specifically what it was that we were talking about, but yeah, they said something which implied that they understood Austrian economics, but just simply ignored it.
We were talking about the leaked FBI document.
It was that. I remember.
Yeah, so Okay, so yeah, they understand these concepts. So I think they've known that the economy was going to collapse for a long time. So they set up Trump. They've made this pretend anti-establishment candidate who is actually just as establishment, if not more than any of the others. He's just as much of a corporatist, just as much of a war hawk, and he keeps talking about how he's deregulating the market and the economy is going to collapse under his presidency. So that's something that he opened up. He's saying, "Oh, look, the media is going to say, oh, look, deregulation caused this. Anti-establishment politics caused this."
Yeah.
And what's going to happen is, I think if the state even survives this, which there's a chance it will, and a chance it won't. But if the state survives this, it'll become the most authoritarian thing we've seen in our lifetimes.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
that's what they're hoping
I see
for.
coming out of this is feudalism.
it's not
Yes.
going to. That's the thing.
Exactly.
I think that you saw the IMF released the SDP, their fiat currency, but like they did that a while ago now. I think their plan was to basically have a single world government which operated under sort of a feudalistic structure. But yeah, crypto anarchists and cryptocurrency completely threw a wrench into that, and now that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I was going to
Go
say
ahead.
that, like a fun fact that ever since the Trump presidency, we've actually moved down a rank on the Economic Freedom Index.
Oh,
Actually, now
good.
number 18.
Yeah. He's deregulating the market, everybody. The U.S. goes down a rank on the Index of Economic Freedom.
I feel so economically liberated right now.
You know,
So-
it's
I
funny.
mean,
I should read a tweet that he put out earlier today.
I'm a tariff man.
For as much as Trump is about economic freedom and deregulating the market, here is Donald Trump tweeted this approximately
Recently.
at 7:03 a.m. today. I am a tariff man. When people or countries come in to raid the great wealth of our nation, I want them to pay for the privilege of doing so. It will always be the best way to max out our economic power. We are right now taking in billions in tariffs. Make America rich again.
I'm a tariff man. You didn't even need to read the rest of that statement.
You're just as bad as a tax man.
Tariff man.
That defines Trump's economic policies in a nutshell. I'm a tariff man.
He's literally a tax man.
Of course, his nationalist cunt drones always like to eat that shit up. Like, oh my god, have you seen
But they have but they have tariffs too, and that's causing problems in the market. So we need tariffs to fix the problems.
Oh no, you don't understand. It's 86 dimensional chess.
86-dimensional chest.
Yeah, I mean it's not. I mean we can prove that it's not 85 dimensions because Trump is operating on a whole nother plane of existence.
Tariffs caused the problem, but our tariffs are going to solve the problem. That's not how that works.
And all the status are going to
Literally
be
every status policy ever.
Orange man good.
all the
Purple
status are
man,
going to be.
purple.
This is fine. Everything's burning around them.
Yeah, it's that meme in a nutshell is the main thing.
Someone,
right
love
now.
that dog.
someone should add to that meme where it's just like the Austrian, just like roasting a marshmallow over that fire.
Yeah.
Everything's fine, and literally everything is not fine. Well, I mean, it will be. It will be inevitably, but
So, do we have any plans, like in case something, like in case the state does go down?
when it goes down, and
When-
yeah, I've explained my plan multiple times. First of all, if you have a bank account or you have a credit union account, you want to get all of that out right now and put it in either cryptocurrency or a precious metal, because it's gonna be gone. You're gonna get fucking cleaned once the market collapses.
Mm-hmm.
And second,
I just
you're gonna want to get out of the cities. That's another thing you're gonna want to do, because cities have more spending, and because they have more spending, they have more regulations and taxes on their economy, so they have more state-dependent people. And when the state collapses, basically, shit is gonna hit the fan. So you're gonna want to either not be in a city right now, or you're going to want to map out a very easy route to get out of the city as soon as it happens.
Yeah.
Do we have a place to go?
I'm just gonna survive until I can get planes.
That's up to you. I have a couple places that I can go, but yeah, I've followed that plan, so I'll be fine. Oh, and you're also gonna want to have a gun or two, but I think that's a given.
That's a given.
Hello, Britain.
Oh,
ammunition as well.
Yeah.
Also,
ammunition
and of course, this should go without saying, but also get some non-perishables.
Yeah.
Just like
definitely.
I plan to become Mr. House.
Well, first you need to upload your mind to a computer.
Without that aspect.
Then you need to open a casino in the middle of nowhere.
You gotta bring lots of Twinkies.
Yeah, bring them.
I mean, that wouldn't hurt.
I mean, I would, there's basically there's a bunch of field grass around here. I mean, I would just straight up eat the grass, but it's like winter time, so that's just gonna be dead.
Like, yeah, I'll make sure that no fucking commie movements or fasci movements arise in my local area.
I can't. The comments about Twinkies, I couldn't help but think of the episode of Family Guy where Y2K happens. So Peter takes the family to find a Twinkie factory where he starts a new settlement.
It's not going to be as bad as like the Y2K episode of Family Guy, because I mean, for one thing, it's going to be an incredibly short interchanging period of time between the collapse of the state and the reformation of a new society around cryptocurrencies.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's gonna be really bad for like a couple months or so, I would say, but I mean, really quickly.
Once you get through that, you're probably gonna be fine.
I was thinking of like, what if we? I know this sounds weird. Sounds kind of out there.
I don't want to do any free territories.
You don't want to do any free territories.
No, let's just burn stuff.
Stop scratching.
I was thinking like maybe we could have the Ancaps go to somewhere and have like kind of start some place.
Just be
that's
like
a free territory, and I don't want to do it.
Yeah,
Just ends up like that one plot of land, like in one
because you're limiting your population, and if you limit your population, you're going to create extreme scarcity, so that's never going to work.
Yeah.
True. All right.
Get to know stop noise.
Okay.
We can hear what
You know, one thing I actually find interesting about crypto, though, is that Ancapistan is actually going to work much better with crypto. Like, people like to say, oh, how do you have property without the state? Because no one's going to keep track of it. Well, here's crypto technology, which is the perfect tool for keeping track of it. Like, it's possible to keep track of property without crypto, but this is like, this is perfection.
Oh yeah, there are like sort of like scanners you can buy, like doors, basically like door frames that some of these stores have, and yeah, as you walk through them, it'll be able to tell whether or not you're like it'll be able to scan your not scan your phone, but it like you can put a verification on whatever piece of furniture you have, sort of like an ID card, and the moment it passes through the door, you're automatically going to be alerted to it.
Yeah.
So that's
Like,
that's another thing that's gonna happen because of the crypto market is yeah. I mean, the moment that becomes mainstream, cashiers are not going to be a thing anymore, because in the stores that actually trade in cryptocurrency, they have those door frames. So, I mean, they literally have it to where you can just walk through the door, and the moment that you do, it'll you can scan your coin wallet. I don't necessarily know exactly how it works, but yeah, it'll scan your coin wallet, and you can carry out the item and not even have to like go do a checkout for it.
Yeah.
Right. It's
That
pretty
sounds
cool.
amazing.
So you just go in.
Yeah, you just go in, walk out, don't even think twice about it.
Now, I wouldn't
You
be
still
surprised if there are still statist enclaves in the new world order. So to
No,
speak.
there's gonna be.
Yeah,
There's going to be a lot of them.
Yeah,
Well, like
but I mean,
more so city states, which is significantly better than the nation state,
probably.
as well as Islamic shitholes.
The thing is that that's the problem is cryptocurrency. Well, it's the problem for statists. It can't be regulated, it can't be traced, so it can't be taxed. How do you form a state again after you establish a stable market which is based on cryptocurrency?
Yep.
I think you can get enough people to re-adopt some form of fiat currency.
Yeah, but that's worthless compared to cryptocurrency. No one would trade in it.
Like, how do you think the way fiat currency came about was because it was originally on a gold standard, which the state just threw out.
Yeah, and that's the other problem is that fiat needs a state to come into existence in the first place.
Yep. Because, like, if you suddenly say that your banknotes are now not backed by any crypto or precious and they're now just monopoly money, well, people are going to fucking abandon it. Unless you're the state and you have the arbitration on who gets to decide what the money actually is.
But yeah, say you have these status enclaves which create fiat currencies. Well, no one outside of their little enclaves would trade in it, so it wouldn't catch on.
It would be like the I'm tempted to say Fallout games, like because of the bottle caps.
No,
bottle caps.
It would be more like your. I mean, I don't want to. It's sort of hard to say this because it sounds incredibly utopian, but it would be sort of like a better cyberpunk future. That's kind of what it would be like.
Yeah.
It'd be like Cyberpunk, except not a criticism of evil mega corporations.
To be fair, I think that Cyberpunk is more a corruption of everything.
Yeah,
that's
cyberpunk, but not corruption, not involved.
Yeah.
So
Cyber
that
society.
mean like would that mean these like pseudo states that pop up? Would that mean like they
wouldn't
they
be
would still be
states because they wouldn't be able to coerce people, so they would basically just be terrible communes that no one would want to join.
More like mafias, actually.
Yeah, but then that would require coercion, and they can't do that.
I know. I mean, like sort of a impractical mafia, like one that just tries its damned best but still fails in the end.
And then there's nothing to steal because you have your account.
Yeah.
All right.
Unless
I'll
I
just
steal
point
like,
out
your
we're
furniture or something.
We're about down to the last 7 minutes of the stream. So if anyone has final thoughts, put them out there. But then if you wanted to discuss Florida Man or whatever
Florida Man!
Well, we were gonna mention how we were gonna discuss how the left and the right are the same thing, or the quote unquote left and right.
Yep.
All right.
I mean, we've done enough on that over the.
Well, I sort of mentioned ways or at least evidence which supports that being the case. But okay, well, all parties are state-run entities and therefore necessarily have the exact same interests. And you can look at the things which, for example, the Republicans versus the Democrat Party do. They claim that they propose these things claiming that they're ideologically different, but if you look at their effect on the market, they're exactly the same. Their effects on the market, their effects on society. My favorite example to point out would be the war, not the war, but tariffs versus increasing the income tax rate. They come from a completely different premise, and or at least they claim to be coming from a completely different premise and have completely different movements supporting them, but they do the exact same thing to the market.
Precisely.
I have a hypothetical
Same with the carbon
question.
tax.
I have a hypothetical question. After the state collapses, do you think it's at all possible there will be any people who simply live in denial and continue to believe that the state exists and is the reason for the newfound prosperity and all the rest of it?
Well, that'll be interesting. I mean, I wouldn't deny it because, I mean, most of the population, they're deeply, deeply indoctrinated in statism.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that'll be a pretty easy illusion to shatter. I mean, you simply ask them, well, where's the government? who are the people that are ruling this society?
They'd be in denial. They'd be in so much, like, there'll be people trying to say, oh, we'll bring back the United States. We'll bring it back.
By the way, guys, I found an excellent Florida man story.
Oh, wonderful.
All right. Florida. This is actually amazing. Florida man.
I have to do it.
Stop it.
No, stop. Fucking
Okay.
stop cutting everyone off.
Okay. Florida man wrestles shark to save nephew's severed arm.
Oh my god.
Jesus Christ!
Did they get the arm?
Yes, actually.
Did they reattach the arm?
Yes.
Did it work?
Yes.
Florida
Amazing!
Florida man's a badass.
Jesus Christ!
when he's not doing something completely insane.
And
he can
apparently
be a superhero.
Florida doctors are fucking awesome. They're worth
Apparently. But
Holy shit!
yeah, they can reattach a severed arm and it's still functional.
Likely
Well,
rip
that's
the
amazing.
shreds.
Well, it takes like months, even years, for an arm that's been severed to be reattached and then be fully functional again. But you know, by all accounts, the boy will not only survive, but he'll gain the full use of his arm back.
It's
Florida-
wow, that's brilliant.
Why
Yeah.
are liberals complaining about healthcare? Look at that.
Yeah, freaking
Because it's
Florida.
being regulated by the American Medical Association.
I know.
Yeah.
It's a joke.
Pretty much.
It's fucking annoying.
You
Well,
apparently have no jurisdiction in Florida.
Yeah, so what happened is like the kid got his arm bitten off by a shark. His uncle jumps in, carries the boy back onto shore, and then jumps back in to retrieve the arm.
damn.
Florida man is BA. Our hero.
Anyways, Bush Sr. is dead. France is going up in flames, and the rest of Europe will follow once Article 13 passes, and the state will inevitably die, as seen by the shit that's going down with the stock market and many other things related to the petrodollar, which Russia has completely fucking rejected. Make
Inevitably.
your closing statements.
Oh God! I just read that.
At this point, I'd be surprised if it lasts until 2019.
I just read further in the story, and the uncle used a freaking gun against the shark.
Damn.
Badass.
Bro.
Florida man is the world's
That's
best superhero.
the best argument against gun control I've ever heard. Without guns, How will I save my nephew's arm from sharks?
Anyways, thank you all for joining this stream. And we are
Thanks
going to
for
make our
having me.
outro statements now. This was Hoplu. I have a patron now. Bye, my.
All right, Hoplu has made his closing statement. I will periodically mute each of you after you've made yours. So next,
Okay.
Foxes rule the universe.
I was like half awake through this entire stream.
all right. Well, heck of a closing statement, so Filthy.
Oh, hi. Check out my channel, Filthy Heretic. I do all sorts of amazing stuff occasionally.
All right, and anyone left?
Foxes rule the universe. I haven't uploaded in several months, and I'm not sure if I ever will again.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining the Kool Kapitalist Kids podcast on My 2 Cents. If you are in need of some mindless garbage to help, wash over all the nonsense that's going on in the world, please check out my latest video in which I set Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez speech to the song "The Hamster Dance." I had a little bit of spare time this morning, and it brought a smile to my face. I hope it brings one to yours as well. Everybody have a good night, and that is my 2 cents. So take it for what it's worth.